Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and today joined by the full Southampton cohort, as always. My good friend Oscar, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
And Zach, how you feeling?
Yeah, all right. I mean, we didn't lose yesterday. We're recording directly the day after everything. So, that's a win, right?
Yeah, we've got a short turnaround until our next game, but we don't need to go the full cycle of hope. The optimism remains, I think, from a reasonably solid performance, and although a disappointing finish, still a point, which is more than we have achieved at home in what seems like an eternity. But we now look forward and cast our eyes to the weekend, where on Sunday we take a trip to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to face Spurs, and it's going to be an interesting one. It's do we have more to play for than them at this point now? Because
They're not fighting for Europe, are they? So
no.
They're not fighting to not get relegated. What they fight for, Ange's reputation. Well, that seems to be a big.
Mate, they're definitely going to win a trophy this season. It's the second season, isn't it? So,
yeah, one of those international ones that you get during the off season, right? Where you and another team play each other twice or something like that. I mean, that's got to be what their trophy cabinet's full of. I know. The last time I made this joke, I had Spurs fans kicking off me like, "Well, one of our most successful teams ever," and I'm like, "Yeah, and we used to be a staple of the Premier League, but unfortunately, times change."
I think they've got the Europa League next week, so that probably does us a bit of a favour because that is one of the few chances they still have to win silverware. And because he has said that, he's absolutely set himself up. So they've got to win that. I think it actually plays in our favour a little bit because they're playing tonight as well. So you'd like to think of the three games, they'd be thinking we should be the ones that are easy pickings, which I think plays into our favour a little bit. If we start, well, maybe not exactly like we did against Palace, but let's say this after Bednarek's slip and get at them a little bit and we get the first goal, who knows? Because I think it could get seriously toxic in there.
Yeah, but I will also point out that they were the team that got Russell Martin fired. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and then we went in thinking maybe we could do something, and then within 25 minutes it was all over. But maybe that means there's a little bit extra motivation to not go back and be really bad. Who knows? Be an interesting one.
It is really interesting. I think it's really hard to predict based off of that because both teams this season, you have seen both sides of the coin. Like we've seen performances from Saints, mostly in spots, but throughout the season that have us feeling like we shouldn't be the worst team in Premier League history because we've played some decent football. And it's the same with Spurs, where you just don't know which team you're going to get that show up. They've had ranging everything from when they absolutely battered us and got Russell Martin fired to just absolutely woeful performances. So it's a really difficult one to predict going in, but that's, I guess, where the optimism remains strong, right?
You just got to make sure you triple captain Son that day because that's usually when he's one of the ones that frequently scores a lot of goals against us, right? Whenever he plays.
I don't know if it's a good time to play them or not, but they've lost 4 out of their last 5 games. So, they're winless in 4 out of the last 5. They beat AZ Alkmaar, but they lost to Man City, lost to AZ Alkmaar, drew with Bournemouth, beat AZ Alkmaar, and then lost to Fulham on their last game. And who knows how they'll get on tonight? I don't think you can. They're both teams that are impossible to predict, Chelsea and Tottenham. So you never know quite what you're going to get.
Yeah, it certainly does make this sort of prediction-based preview much harder to do, right? It's definitely the least I felt like I've known what's going to happen heading into a game all season, which is really interesting. I guess because normally we head into it feeling like we might get battered, but might put a performance in. But this really feels, I don't know, it could go either way from both teams. I don't know.
All I'm pointing out is that Palace were above them before yesterday and after yesterday anyway. They're below Manchester United. They sit 14th. When we're looking at teams around us that are beatable, are teams that we can take stuff away from, we missed our big chance with Wolves. We've still got a chance with Leicester towards the end of the season, where maybe we can beat that record. But ultimately, it's probably, in my opinion, one of the chances that we have of the remaining fixtures to do something, right? That's where I'm at. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Yeah, I don't know. We've got to get there to get the points. It might be the win that pushes us over. That would be exciting. If we get a point, that is enough from these two games to not get us relegated this weekend, even if Wolves win. So that's something, right?
And then all we've got to do is win every single game until the end of the season. And Wolves and Ipswich and Leicester have to lose everything. Bear in mind that Ipswich got a win the other day, yesterday, right? So that's wild. We are really, really struggle bussing. But again, it's one of the few remaining fixtures where I see us potentially getting anything out. Right, uh, everything else looks is going to be pretty tough, especially towards the end of the season where we've got I want to say City and Arsenal within a week of each other. So yeah, it'll be. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. It depends which teams turn up, right? Which I know that arguably that is football in general, but specifically Spurs and Southampton, that is very much is the Spurs that go out and win games going to turn up, or is it going to be the ones that absolute bottle job it? And are we going to show the fight we did yesterday, or is the only reason that we showed that much fight because most of the players had about 2 weeks off, and now that they've got to go back after 2 or 3 days, they're all going to be knackered. So, swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move the chat towards some predicted lineups. But first, a message from our partners at Bionique.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionique, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionique provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionique. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body is unique.
Okay, and we are back. Okay, some predicted lineups. I guess I'll throw myself under the bus for a change. Obviously, with Flynn down suspended, that's sort of an enforced change. Other than that, I don't see us making many changes from the starting lineup of Palace. I don't see any reason why we should. I guess an almost straight swap of bring a Rebo in for Downs and stick how it is. Oscar, how do you feel?
I'd agree. I've got the same pretty much. I think Ryan Manning as well came off with potentially a knock, so that might be another one to look at. He did say there was quite a bit of maybe a bit of cramp or a bit of tiredness at the end, so could that be a factor? I don't know, but I agree. Why change something that did work against a team that probably, well, certainly on form are not as good as Palace, but we know they've got the ability to do it when they want to. But I agree, why change it? But does Juric agree is the question. Is he just randomly going to change it and then go back to the 3-4-3? And, I appreciate it's a bit of a nuance between a 1 and a 2 or a 2 and a 1, but if it works, stick with it, in my opinion. But I'm not sure he will.
Yeah, no, that is a concern I share. Zach, how you feeling about it? Thinking much difference?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat because it worked, and I think that some of the things that changed it ultimately, once again, were the substitutions, which I understand why we need to do them, because you could see that I feel like Paul's legs were literally going to collapse towards the end of the game, but it's difficult because we're going to swap out hopefully Downs for a like for like with a Rebo, but I worry that the positives will not be learnt from this match again. Is my problem, and especially with, if Downs isn't here, maybe if I switch this and put this person here, or maybe we'll just start Sugawara again, and maybe we'll pivot Cole Walker-Peters back to the left, and it's but it worked. It really did work, and I know there are probably going to be some forced errors, forced changes at this point, right? Again, like Downs is one of them. I don't know if Paul's going to make it on Sunday, so that means that it might be a swap out for Archer. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but I wouldn't want to hugely change what seemed to work.
Could Jack Stevens do a role in there? I know we're not that keen on him playing out of position, but
no, because that's how we ended up in this position in the first place, where like that was part of the Russell Martin issue, right? Was him cramming Stevens into everywhere. But then one of the things that we literally talked about yesterday was playing players in their correct position.
Yeah,
turned out to work.
No, I do agree.
Archer for Tall Paul's not a like for like swap, is it?
But it is a striker for a striker.
You have to change the system, right? Because Paul was such an out option, and you don't have that with Archer unless you're trying to lump it further for him to run in behind, and that's just not going to play out.
That's fine, but then if you're going to change the positions, play players that know how to play in those positions. That's where I'm at. It's not crowbar Stevens into the middle of the defensive mid or whatever. Don't do that. Just change the system around to deal with the players that you have, and instead of trying to cram players that don't know how to do stuff into your system. Because again, like we still had some silly mistakes, and we played well yesterday. So if we try and do this thing where also people are playing out of position, it's not going to work. It never has.
It's more that Stevens is fairly competent. I don't think he adds as much going forwards, and also you then take him out of the back three, which I think they were pretty. Other than the goal, they were pretty solid last night. It's more that he is a bit closer to being that combative shield centre midfielder than an Aribo. But I completely agree with what you're saying. Like maybe like shoehorning people isn't a good idea. It's just about trying to find that balance, I think. Yeah. I do also wonder with Tall Paul, if he is running a bit low, could he do half? How far away is Ross Stewart? I mean, could he come on and do a 20 minutes when Tall Paul? Because that is what we need.
He had a fresh injury setback, didn't he? I think he's out for at least another couple of weeks.
I think before the international
break. I think before the international break, he had a setback. I don't know how long it was.
Last week, I think he was spotted training with the first team. So he was back in training. And I think Juric said at the weekend he needs to make sure he's ready before he comes back. So it sounds like he's on the right way to do that. And he is probably the only option we have as a like-for-like swap for Tall Paul if we can get him on the pitch, even for 10 minutes when Paul's knackered. Because that, I think, was a large contributing factor to why we struggled towards the end of the game yesterday. We just couldn't hold the ball up, and we weren't getting it far enough over to be able to test Palace in behind. And, as you said, we don't really have anyone else that can do that. Archer's probably the like-for-like for Sulemana as the other striker. So
I feel like Wellington was the only substitution yesterday that worked, in my opinion. But then that's not the fault of the players, or really. It's just that they got put into the positions they got into. And obviously the £100 million man was a little bit anonymous. I wouldn't be surprised if all of the noise is starting to get to him a little bit. It would me if I was like 18 years old and people are talking about me being worth 100 million quid.
Yeah, and then I go out there and suddenly that just goes some way to keeping him with us next season, to be honest.
Yeah, but you don't want it to go so ways that it could go down in my head are things like, do you remember when we had Broja and he was scoring for fun and doing really, really well and he got distracted a little bit? And now we look at him now where like Go is still out on loan constantly, spending some of the season at Everton. He went out with that, I want to say an ACL early in the season, before or after the game against us, if I remember rightly. And that's kind of where my opinion is of that, is that like, be careful, because we know what it's like when we try and keep a player that's not wanting to be here, and also if their performances drop with it, it's not really.
Did he say why?
Really a great thing.
Did he say why he took Downs off? Because if it was for fitness, for me, he's got to miss the next two games anyway. So
I think it was probably just the yellow, if I'm totally honest. I think
even then,
considering he's always guaranteed to get a yellow, don't want to risk him getting a red this late on if he is going to play pivotal to the rest of our season. And like again, if we play like we did yesterday for the rest of the season, that would be just glorious. But obviously, he is now not going to be in those two games. And I feel like that if you got a red, that would be the end of the season, right? That's his season pretty much over at that point.
Does it add? It would have added one more match ban, so he would have had a 3-match rather than a 2 if he'd have got a red.
Well, it just depends what the red was for, right?
You'd like to trust at least. Like, surely you have a word, say, Flip. You're on for the rest of the game. You're missing the next turn anyway. Do not get sent off. That is your only job. Do not get sent off.
Yeah, but at that point, he wouldn't commit to the tackles that they need him to commit to be able to.
Yeah.
So
especially because were forced to take Ugochukwu off. Right, he was looking leggy and needed to come off.
But I think this is part of what we've discussed the whole rest of the season as well. Is it's the squad balance, right? It's trying to get the balance right, but also it's just the personnel that we have, and that half of them are here to play one way, half of them are here to play another way. You can't necessarily trust them all to play in the positions when we try and makeshift that out, and it's difficult. It's really, really difficult to try. And we've had these issues every single game but substitutions specifically are one of them. But then also, flip side of that, you can't not make the substitutions half the time. That's what I wanted to yesterday. Realistically, what I wanted is the start 11 to stay on and see the game out. Because as Greg pointed out before, I don't know what's going on with fitness in our squad, but none of our squad can usually make it past 60 minutes. And then you're swapping out for everybody that are going to upset the rhythm because, as you pointed out, Archer isn't the same as Toolpool. Sulemana isn't the same as Dibbling. So then everything is going to have to change slightly. The only thing that really stays is the defence. And even then, the problem is if the balls get lost more, they start having to put far more work in during the times that they are absolutely knackered. So it's going to be difficult. And I really hope that, not necessarily a philosophy, but like a style of football that makes sense and that we have players that can play all of the different areas we require them to in the future is pretty much where I'm hoping we start to go to. And having a solid starting 11 that can see out more than half a game is a wonderful thing to look forward to. And I think that's one of the things that causes issues.
Yeah, I think as well, just having a consistent shape now. I know we've said we don't want to shoehorn players into positions they can't play, etc. But we need to start. We can't just keep flipping the formation from one week to the next. It's just not getting any sort of consistency. At least this way, we can make a starting 11 with players that play in sort of their right positions, maybe a slightly different role, but try and keep that consistency now is what I'd be saying. Or find something that works and stick with it for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that brings us nicely into an unpleasant part of the show, maybe something not to look forward to, where we have to try and predict what we think is going to go down this weekend. But first, a message from our partners at Zencaster. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencaster came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencaster. Okay, and we are back. So, unenviable might have been the word I was looking for before the break. We got there eventually. So, who fancies it first? Zach, go on.
I don't mind. Yeah, it's fine. The problem is usually I'll go, what does someone not want? What does either team not want? A 0-0 draw, probably. However, I think that the point for us then puts us on tally with Derby, right? Which makes us the joint worst of all time, which is better than being the worst of all time. Maybe we'll end up a similar situation. Let's go with 1-1 again. I genuinely think I think that maybe we'll be the ones to get the late goal this time round. Obviously, I could be horrifically wrong, but I feel like for me, a draw where we actually score a goal is at this point an optimistic outlook. And we managed it last game. Maybe we can manage it again, but it will be interesting if Paul is out, considering he is now our top goal scorer for the Premier League campaign, an actual striker, only with a tally of 4. However, still a striker with the top amount of goals scored for our team.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Oscar, how you see it playing out?
Yeah, similar sort of vein. I think we've got to go for this. There's no point in sitting off and thinking, "Oh, Spurs are good. We've got to be really careful." We've got to go for it. I think there's something to build on, and I know every time we say that, we turn around and put in an absolute stinker of a performance the next game. So, maybe I'm going to be optimistic again. I'm also went for a draw. I went 2-2, and I know 2 goals is unheard of, but Toolpool's on fire. 2 goals, wow! Who would have thought it from a Southampton player? So I'm going to say Toolpool scores again, and I reckon we go 2-1 up, and then we have a similar sort of last minute concede. And Fernandez with the other one, just because why not?
Okay.
But 2-2.
A couple of draws. Well, this isn't going to come as a surprise to anyone, but I'm buzzing off the optimism. I think we're going to push on from solid performance, and I'm feeling 3-0. 3 goals and a clean sheet. The optimism's starting out.
I wonder what the odds are on that.
Yeah.
No. Who's scoring 3 goals, Greg?
Toolpool, Matty Fernandez, and Taylor Harwood-Bellis with a header.
I cannot wait to see the team sheet and see that Toolpool, unfortunately, is still collapsed on the floor and is unable to play. Because that is the news I'm expecting whenever there is a presser, if there is a presser.
Look, it's normal for Toolpool to look leggy that late into a game. We know this. It shouldn't come as a surprise, but he's going to go on and he's going to come back and be match ready for at least the 25 minutes it's going to take him to get on the end of one and stick it in the back of the net. We'll all be as surprised as ever, but it's going to happen. 3-0. Look, you heard it here first. I'm trying to look up the odds right now, but it's just the way it's got to be.
I just can't live in your land. That's where I'm at. I did think I bumped into someone in the concourse yesterday and I was speaking to them. They had a bet on a 1-0 win with Toolpool to score. Had the conversation at half time, and I briefly mentioned the concept of cashing it out. He said, I already have. Already cashed out. I don't think we're going to stick with it. I don't think he made a huge amount of money on it, but fair play to him. But it does go to show the sort of state of affairs of us protecting a lead. But we've never been particularly good at that, have we?
No,
it is.
I could still see us going 3-0 up before half time and losing 5-3, mate.
So that equally wouldn't surprise me, but it shows that you've got the belief that we can score 3 goals as well. And that's what I'm taking from that. That's the positive. I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling like we're going to push on. We're going to get the result we deserve. We're going to, fly past the Derby record.
I think that at the end of this season, if I can be bothered to go through the time, I'm going to go through all of the clips and all of the episodes that we have at the end of the episodes where you just say you're just feeling it. And then I'm going to figure out the percentage of how many times you've been wrong. And I'm relatively sure at this rate it's about 98. But that's why we love you, Greg, because somebody has to have belief here.
Has to maintain, right? Like we've got to get something out of this season. That if we win on Sunday, I'm not saying that we're staying up because mathematically it is virtually impossible, but we might still finish 19th.
Mm. I haven't been keeping too much an eye on Spurs. Has Forster still been playing recently, or not really? Because he's got to be due a clanger soon, surely. It'd be nice if he has one against us.
I don't know, to be honest.
I think Vicario was starting to come back, so maybe he's back. I don't know. I'll be honest, I haven't kept up with Spurs, but that would be nice. Because to be fair, actually, even them playing out from the back last time with him, he nearly got caught out against us then. We know that's not his specialty, so...
Yeah, Vicario played the last game, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, Vicario's played the last couple.
But then again, that was also Sunday the 16th of March, so who knows what's happened since then, other than the complete breakdown of society in the world. But that seems to be every week that we live in interesting times, so who knows?
That is the topic of another podcast for another day. We have just about run out of time. Look, clip it up, and when we win 3-0, it'll go viral on Monday, Zach. You heard it here first. Get the bets on. We will be back on Monday, regardless of how that goes down. Until then, let's hope it's not the hope that kills us. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you then.
Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.